Greetings, fellow tarot travelers. Tripping through the tetrahedral triptych of cards I shall now lay before you. I'm Tarot Torch, and now we're going to talk about immigration. Hillary Clinton recently gave a speech and an interview in Europe claiming that immigration is a problem and that America should refuse immigrant assistance. If she can't beat the Republicans, did she decide to join them in the anti-immigration bandwagon? Are the Democrats turning right-wing? Will we see a resurgence of Dixiecrat Southern white racist Democrats like George Wallace? Will the progressive Democrats out Clinton as a racist? Will there be a split in the Democratic Party? Well, these are some pretty big questions, and when there are questions we don't have the answers to, we turn to the tarot cards. Because we're dealing with Mrs. Clinton, who's from Arkansas, I've chosen the Hillbilly Tarot. This is a wonderful tarot deck for anyone starting the Marseille system of tarot. I highly recommend it. It's from the heartland of America, and it has some very interesting cards, such as the Snake Handler, who represents the Hierophant or the Pope card. And I think it's a very humorous and insightful deck and really worth experiencing. And so I want to know what Mrs. Clinton is up to. Now, I think, immigration is an issue. We can't say it's not an issue. Nobody wants their country taken over by another nation because they make babies there in such large numbers, they take over the population base. And nobody wants spies or terrorists in their country. But, America seems to be humming right along pretty darn well. I mean, it's true we have a large immigrant population, but in fact, 100% of America is immigrant. Even some of the Native American tribes are immigrants, if you actually analyze it closely. Some of them came from Canada and other regions, even from Asia. So here we are going to look at these cards and see, what did Mrs. Clinton mean when she was talking about managing immigration? What is it with the Democratic Party and what do they mean? And is the left wing going to finally address this issue? Because an open door policy, although it does work, it may not work as we intend it to be. And the first one is luxury. The Four of Jugs, luxury. And what's so interesting here with this deck, and this is why it's good for learning Marseille system, is it gives you what the card represents. Instead of cups, we have jugs of moonshine. And luxury is a really interesting concept when we're discussing immigrants. The Republicans want to get rid of the immigrants, but then who's going to mow their golf course? Who's going to clean the underside of their yacht? Who's going to raise their children? Who's going to be their gardener? Who's going to do their computer programming? I mean, the richer you are, the more you depend on immigrants to help with the work you need done at a reasonable rate. In order to provide a luxurious standard of living, many of the factories in America have to employ slave labor workers, and that means foreign immigrants that are illegal. If we get rid of all of the illegal immigrants in America, as the Republicans desire, that'll close down every golf course. All the mansions will have dirty windows and shrubs that are filled with weeds. None of the children will be raised properly. And the rich people will sit in the house not knowing how to cook. So there you go. And then in the center, we have the Ace of Shotguns. Now the shotguns are the Wands suit in this particular deck. And this couldn't be more humorous with the shotgun being held out like it's from the hand of God. In some ways, this is like an NRA special, this card. And, this is about the enforcement at the border. And the border enforcement, the border wall, this is a dreamlike image where the hand is coming from the sky. It's as though we have this ideal in our minds. But I hate to tell you this, people. A bigger border exists with Canada, and then there's the coastal borders along California, Oregon, and Washington State, and the East Coast borders. Do you know how many Chinese and Vietnamese and Korean immigrants come in container ships regularly? The idea of building a wall to Mexico, that's like a lot of money to stop and put your finger in the leaking dam or the dike as though that's going to solve your problems. The whole thing is going to be collapsing on us soon. There's no way to stave off the problems of the border with dreams in hand of a white America and a border fence like that's going to solve every problem. If you think that's going to solve all your problems, you've been listening to too much AM radio and you follow demagogues. The truth of the matter is our border is huge. We have a 360-degree circular border around our continent. There's no way every inch of it can be walled. And the ending and the outcome is truce, the Four of Knives. Now, this is a really interesting card because although it represents truce, it is knives or force that then is the source of the truce. Truce doesn't happen with everybody disarmed. Truce happens because there are arms to defend the truce. So what we really need, and what the cards are saying for immigration, is we need to have better treaties with foreign countries that deal with this issue. We need to start creating immigration treaties. We have treaties for trade. We have treaties for war. We have treaties for arms. We have treaties for oil exploration. We have all kinds of international treaties, contracts, and agreements with foreign nations. Now we need a truce and a treaty, and we need to have signed contracts with countries like Mexico that are better written. That's what's going to stave off the problem. If Mexico and America work together, and it could be shown to Mexico, look, you're losing your own labor force. The people that come to America are the hardest working Mexicans. They come to America and have nothing. Oh my gosh, they have such a harrowing experience leaving Mexico, being dragged through the desert by coyotes, in the middle of the night, walking 20, 30, 40 miles without any water, climbing through sewer ducts, making it to America and being penniless and without citizenship to work for below minimum wage. These are the strongest, hardest workers in Mexico, and Mexico is losing that great and important labor force. What we need to do is to explain to Mexico that you don't want to lose your own people. We need to get countries like Mexico to have better law enforcement to reduce crime, and we need to have them keep their own workers and have a system of agreements so that we're able to handle this problem in an ethical and positive way. We shouldn't have to put fear into immigrants and cage their children. What a mistake that is. We need to come up with a policy that works. This pie in the sky ideology of having a fence is just not going to cut it. These people have been, I'll be honest with you, I live in Southern California, and I've talked with Kumeyaay Indians of San Diego, native people of San Diego. And they say they've been crossing back and forth from Mexico to California for 25,000 years. You're not going to catch them. You're not going to find them in the desert. They know what they're doing. I'm telling you, a wall is not going to keep anybody out. It's just going to raise the price for the coyotes. People will come in boats. They'll come in on rafts. They'll come in 1,000 different ways. They'll be hang gliding to get into America. There's no way to stop them. And I don't think the luxurious, rich Republicans want their lifestyle ruined. Who's going to clean up their sauna? Who's going to work in their vineyards? Who's going to do the labor in their fields? No. The rich need the poor, and the poor need the rich. And instead of having a shotgun in the sky, we need an open hand of peace, and we need to have a truce with the nations that provide the immigrants and give exchange programs where laborers can come over legally. We can pull in 10,000 laborers a month or a year or whatever the statistic is and set up something that's legal, where the workers are protected, where American interests are protected, where Mexican interests are protected. And then we won't have to deal with things like terrorists coming abroad. And I'll tell you, if a country like Iran wants one of their people in America, or if North Korea wants one of their people in America, they're not going to have trouble planting them in America. They know how to do it. You've seen James Bond movies. There's 1,000 ways to get into a country. The ones that are coming across America through the border or through an area that's supposedly a wall will stop them. They're not very technologically advanced. They're not a threat. They're not in the A class, the kind of people we're really worried about. And that's why truce and agreements, contracts and treaties. This is better than a wall, and that's what the cards are saying today.